My name is Evan Ross, and until a few months ago I thought my life in the coastal town of Red Harbor, Massachusetts, was predictable, stable, maybe even comfortable. Not exciting, but safe. Or at least that's what I kept telling myself. My wife, Sabrina, and I had been married for 12 years. We shared a small gray house near the cliffs, raised our daughter Maya, and built the kind of life people on the outside assume is solid. But inside those walls, the foundation had already begun to crack long before I noticed the damage. It all started on a foggy Thursday night, the kind where the ocean mist rolls through the streets and makes every porch light glow like a lantern in a storm. I was sitting in the living room, sorting paperwork from the insurance office I worked at, when Sabrina came in from the kitchen with a strange look on her face. Not angry, not sad, almost excited. "Evan," she said softly, sitting across from me. "Can we talk?" Those words never mean anything good. Not after midnight. Not with that expression. I closed the folder in my hands. "Sure. What's on your mind?" She hesitated, brushing a strand of dark hair behind her ear, the way she always did when she was nervous. Except this time I didn't feel protective or gentle. I felt dread. "There's something I've never told you," she whispered. "Something about fantasies." I frowned. "Fantasies?" She nodded slowly. "About you, and about someone else. Someone you know." I felt my pulse spike. "Someone I know?" Before I could ask who, she said the name. "Aaron. My former training partner from the boxing gym. The guy who had moved to Red Harbor 2 years ago. The guy I thought was my friend." My stomach twisted into knots. "You're joking," I said, already knowing she wasn't. Sabrina bit her lip, her cheeks flushing with a mix of shame and something else. Something that didn't look like regret. "It's not like I acted on them," she said quickly. "I just imagined things. Sometimes about the two of you. Together." I couldn't breathe for a moment. "You fantasized about me and Aaron? At the same time?" I asked, my voice low. She nodded again, this time without shame. Almost proudly, as if she expected me to be flattered. My jaw tightened. Heat rose behind my eyes. I'd taken punches from grown men that hurt less than this. And the worst part? Our daughter, Maya, had been standing in the hallway, watching, listening. She stepped into the room with that small, forced smile she used whenever she sensed tension. "Are you guys okay?" she asked, pretending not to understand what she'd heard. I swallowed hard, pushing the storm inside me back down for her sake. "Yeah, kiddo," I said quietly. "Everything's fine." But it wasn't. Nothing about that moment was fine. It was the night Sabrina cracked open the door to a truth I hadn't wanted to face. She didn't respect me anymore. Maybe she never had. And the person she'd been running to emotionally was the same person she knew would break me the most. That was the beginning. The night everything shifted. The night I stopped being her husband and started becoming her obstacle. The night she screamed later, "You're not my keeper," before running straight back to the man she'd been fantasizing about. But before I tell you how far she went, and how far I had to go to show her what consequences look like, you need to know exactly how the ground beneath our marriage first split open. And this was the first crack. After Sabrina's confession, the house felt poisoned. Every sound, the ticking clock, the clinking dishes, the soft hum of the refrigerator, felt louder than usual, like the universe itself was trying to fill the silence between us. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying her words over and over. I imagined things about you and Aaron. The betrayal wasn't physical yet, but emotional, psychological. That door had already been kicked wide open. By morning, something inside me had changed. I wasn't the calm, predictable Evan anymore. I felt something feral rising, a version of myself I hadn't needed since my boxing days. And Sabrina? She acted like the previous night never happened. She hummed while brewing coffee. She packed Maya's school lunch. She talked about grocery lists and weekend plans. She even kissed me lightly on the cheek, like she hadn't detonated our marriage 12 hours earlier. I stared at her, wondering how long she'd been living this double life in her head, one where I was just a placeholder husband, and Aaron was the real fantasy. That afternoon, everything escalated. The garage confrontation. Aaron showed up, uninvited. He knocked once on the front door, then walked around the side of the house like he owned the place. I watched him from the living room window. Broad shoulders, self-satisfied smirk, gym bag over his shoulder. I met him halfway in the garage before he could knock again. "What the hell are you doing here?" I asked. He raised both hands like he was innocent. "Sabrina said I could stop by. She wanted to talk about—" I didn't let him finish. Not with that tone. Not with that familiarity. I reached for the first thing in sight, a crowbar hanging on the tool rack. Aaron froze. "Evan," he said slowly, "what are you doing?" I held the crowbar at my side, not pointing it at him, but making damn sure he saw it. "You're going to leave," I said quietly. "You're never going to come here again. And you're going to stay away from my wife." He scoffed. "You're overreacting." My grip tightened around the metal. He took a full step back. "That's what I thought," I said. 10 seconds later, he was halfway down the driveway. He didn't look back. Sabrina's defense. Sabrina burst into the garage as soon as he left, her face flushed with outrage. "Evan, what is wrong with you?" "What's wrong with me?" I repeated, disbelief boiling inside me. "You invited him here? He just wanted to talk. You didn't have to threaten him." I stared at her, stunned. "He was coming to my house," I said, "to see your husband's reaction after your little fantasy confession. And instead of being embarrassed, you defend him." She folded her arms, her lips twisting into that mocking smirk she used when she wanted to cut deep. "Honestly, Evan, sometimes you're just pathetic." The word hit harder than any punch I'd ever taken. And the worst part? She enjoyed saying it. The morning after. The next morning she acted normal again, made coffee, curled her hair, kissed Maya goodbye. No apology, no acknowledgement, nothing. As if humiliating me wasn't worth remembering. As if pushing me to the edge was just another Tuesday. I finally realized something important that morning. She didn't accidentally hurt me. She wanted to. And once you see the intention behind the wound, you can't unsee it. That was the moment I understood. My marriage wasn't broken. It was already dead. But the real fall, the irreversible one, that was still ahead. I walked out of the courthouse in Wakefield, feeling a strange, heavy silence settle inside me. The judge had just announced the decision. Full custody of Elias was granted to me, and Liliana was losing her parental rights indefinitely. I didn't think I would feel relief. I didn't think anything could feel like freedom after months of chaos. But the moment I stepped outside, it washed over me. Quiet, steady, undeniable. Liliana stood a few steps away, pale, shoulders slumped, her lawyer whispering something she clearly didn't hear. She looked at me as if waiting for a sign, a word, a glance that could save at least a fragment of her old life. But I simply walked past her, not with anger, not with joy, just with an exhaustion so deep that it finally felt like closure. Life in our house in Redmont Hill changed almost immediately. The silence, once suffocating, became gentle. I stopped bracing myself every time I opened a door or heard footsteps. And one night, while I was helping Elias assemble a new set of building blocks, he looked up at me with a seriousness far too grown for his small face. "Dad, you won't leave again, right?" he asked. I knelt in front of him, placed my hands on his shoulders, and told him, "Never." He smiled, really smiled, for the first time in what felt like forever. Not the tense, hesitant expression he'd worn for months, but a bright, open smile of a child who finally feels safe again. That moment meant more than any court ruling. As for Liliana, news traveled fast around Wakefield. Within a week of the hearing, she packed up and left town. Rumors said she checked herself into treatment, then changed her phone number, deleted her social media, and vanished. I tried to search inside myself for guilt, sympathy, anything. But all I found was distance. We had shared years, but I was no longer the man who had lived them. You can't mourn someone you've already let go of. A month later, I received a short letter in the mailbox, written in her unfamiliar, shaky handwriting. "Jordan, I know I have no right to ask forgiveness. I only want you to know I realized what I became. You don't need to answer. I just hope someday I can become someone deserving of at least my own life. L." I read it twice, then fed it to the fire in the old stone fireplace. Watching it curl and turn to ash felt like the final thread snapping, quietly, without pain. From there, life rebuilt itself in small, steady steps. I left my old accounting job and accepted the offer from the company's branch in Lakefield. The change felt like stepping out of a long, stale room into fresh air. Elias grew calmer. He laughed again, slept without nightmares, started drawing bright pictures instead of dark scribbles. And I started living. Some evenings we walked along the Lakefield waterfront, watching the water shift under the streetlights. Sometimes we didn't speak at all. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was healing. One afternoon, my neighbor Clara stopped me outside the house. She had brought us pies a few times and always kept a warm eye on Elias. She studied my face for a moment and said, "You look different, Jordan. Better." I thanked her, and for the first time I felt the truth of her words. "I finally understand what's worth fighting for," I said. "Your son?" she asked gently. "And myself," I replied. She smiled as if that answer had restored her faith in something. Every now and then I would think about the moment when everything began, when I decided to take that DNA test. What if I hadn't? What if I had ignored my instincts again, let Liliana twist reality one more time? The answer was always the same. I would have lost myself. And maybe my son too. The truth hurt, but it saved us. One warm evening after putting Elias to bed, I stepped out onto the porch. The Lakefield sky was deep and clear, scattered with stars. The air smelled like the nearby lakes, fresh, cool, peaceful. I breathed in and whispered to the night, "We made it." For the first time in a long time, those words held no fear, no bitterness, only freedom, only the beginning of a new life.